Welcome back. I hope you had fun networking in the different groups and jumping around tables saying hi to everybody. And I hope you had a chance to visit the sponsors booths as well. Don't worry, you can have a look at that later. The platform will be live for a while after the event finishes. So we'd like to thank the sponsors, especially the main sponsor department for the economy, and the conference partners, Community Finance Ireland and Spark. The other sponsors, of course, include Department of Communities, Edwards & Co, Firmus Energy, FSB, Go For It, Halifax Foundation, Hayes Recruitment, Lockton, the Housing Executive, Northern Ireland Local Government Association, Ulster Bank Social and Community Capital, and Viable Services. Now it's time for our guest speaker. I'd like to welcome Kris Bryson to the stage. Kris is in 2014. Kris has played a key role in managing continual growth and strategic relationships across the group. His passion for social entrepreneurship has helped build the WildHearts Group into a multi-million-pound organisation and has become one of the leading social enterprises globally. Kris regularly represents WildHearts around the globe, working with institutions like the United Nations, Yale University and Babson College to inspire the next generation of social entrepreneurs. Kris, you're very welcome. Thank you for joining us today. I'll hand over to you now.
Good morning. Thank you very much. That's quite an introduction. Good morning, everyone. I was just chatting to the guys during the break there and saying that, you know, as Kate mentioned, we speak regularly. We talk about WildHearts and our passions, as we've heard everyone do today. But I'm never more inspired than when we're in a group together as social entrepreneurs, talking about challenges, how we've overcome them. And I think everyone's referenced the challenges of this year and last, and that word resilience that keeps coming to the fore time and time again. We've got it in spades, and we really are a unique breed at times, and we shouldn't overlook that. So I'm genuinely humbled to be asked to share our journey today. WildHearts, or the WildHearts Group, is considered one of the largest B2B social enterprises, predominantly based in the UK, but really starting our global expansion now. I spoke at a couple of events similar to this, and the brief effectively is to talk about our journey, because it's a fairly unconventional one. We apply what you would consider quite a commercial approach to the way that we've achieved growth. And that really has been at the forefront of how we operate, and particularly our relationships with the private sector and corporate customers has allowed us to scale to the level that we're sort of considered one of the leading thinkers in this field. But by no shape or form do we know everything. Most of this narrative will probably be a bit more B2B than B2C, but I hope that, you know, the journey that we've been on and the learnings that we've experienced can apply across the board, and that there's something that I cover in this next session that is going to allow you to take something away from what we've covered. So the strapline of WildHearts is business for good. Business is at the heart of what we do. We're a social enterprise, but we very much think and act like a business, because that's exactly what we all are. Being a social enterprise is something that's immensely important to us. We're really, really proud of it. As I said, really, really proud to be a part of this community, whether it's at national level, you know, continental level, or international level. It really is a unique community full of inspiring people that you just never tire listening to, talking to, and learning from. But beyond that, we also just don't identify as a social enterprise. We think it's really, really important to reflect our responsible business credentials across the board. And there's a comment made earlier, and I saw some comments on the chat talking about social and sustainable. And I really think as we move into this new era, they really have to coexist. So along the bottom of the screen, you should see a couple of our accreditations. Signatories to the UN Global Compact. Again, this is a sort of a nod to something I'll come back to earlier when it comes to when you're approaching the corporate supply chains, really learning to speak their language and really learning to engage in a narrative that's going to feel familiar to them, so that they can really understand where we're coming from. B Corp is an interesting one. You may have seen it on some of your respective news feeds this morning. I think Brewdog have just recently joined B Corp, which is interesting. It's big in the States, and, you know, becoming more prominent in the UK and Europe, but really is sort of considered the best in class approach about how you treat people and planet. So we sit alongside people like Patagonia, Innocent Drinks, etc. And the one in the centre is probably the least known, and probably the one we're most proud of. It means we're a part of the Meaningful Business 100, which is the top 100 businesses that are addressing the UN Sustainable Development Goals. So we're considered in the top 100. I think we're squeezed in there alongside Unilever and Google. And yeah, humble roots in Glasgow don't hold us back when it comes to getting a seat at the top table, because I think what we have to say, and everyone here today has to say, is really, really important. And what we've tried to do over the past 10 years or so is really evolve the narrative to be as punchy, to be as effective, and to be as relevant as it can feel to our target market, which for the majority is corporate and corporate supply chains. Because when you reimagine the possibility of what can be achieved by harnessing the power of the supply chain, the results can be quite incredible. So what gives us license to chat about this? Well, to date, as a result of the way we've scaled the business and the impact that we've delivered, WildHearts has been able to transform the lives of over 1 million people. Those people look very different. We've impacted their lives in very, very different ways, but we all take immense pride in being a part of a movement of peers that, as a result, 1 million people are better off. It's been a long journey. We've learned a lot along the way, but we feel that we're now in a position where we feel confident enough to share our journey and our story with others, in the hope that we may inspire the likes of you that are here today. So I'll very, very briefly cover this just for the purposes of context, but what is our impact? So I talk about the lives that we transform, I talk about the impact that we deliver. What does that look like? Well, it's kind of split into two separate areas, what we consider our local impact and what we consider our global impact. So in the UK and Ireland, our focus is on social mobility. This idea that a young person's postcode should not define the opportunities that they get in life, and should not define their future. And really, we are very, very passionate about providing world-class education, employability training, and in the last couple of years, mental health support for the next generation of young people to equip them with every skill and tool they'll need to make sure that they can be a success in life, whatever they deem that to be. Globally, our focus is on gender equality, and that covers 3 key pillars: enterprise, education, and health. We still have 75% of all women globally who are financially excluded. Typically, they are in economies where most women to generate income are self-employed. That just cannot work. So we set up microfinance operations in 40 different countries that bring women into the economic conversation. As a result, it directly has a massive benefit on the access to education for the next generation and access to healthcare. We work quite closely with the UN, and I'll come on to it, but the education of girls is identified as one of the closest things we're going to get to a silver bullet to addressing the social, economic, and environmental challenges that our world possesses. So when you blend what we deliver locally with what we deliver globally, there's 1 million people out there somewhere today that are benefited as a result of a lot of the key components people talked about today. That resilience, that drive, that passion, but us really trying to focus and distill that message in a corporate landscape that will allow it to land, therefore will allow it to thrive and scale. Now, this is where I get particularly excited. In my opinion, the future of systemic, scalable social impact is by harnessing the power that businesses spend day in, day out. You'll see here on the left, we've got the average FTSE 100 CSR budget annually. And on the right is what they would spend in the procurement budgets. Now, if you imagine them as cakes, I know which one I would want a slice of. Typically, the one on the left is getting smaller and the one on the right is getting bigger. So the scale of what we can be tapping into is enormous. And these businesses are spending money anyway. There is a supply of goods and services that are existing every day that amounts to astronomical figures. And what WildHearts tried to do is find a way to challenge business and say, that product that you're already buying, what if we could provide it to you? What if we could provide it to you at the same cost, at the same level of service? But the difference between us and where you're getting it today is the fact that we're a social enterprise. And as a result of that, you will be responsible for helping us transform lives locally and globally through something you're already spending money on. We're not asking you to spend any more. We're not asking you to do anything particularly different, but the impact you can make could be huge. And that is the conversation that we have popped on the table time and time again for the last 10 years. Now, I feel now we're in a different position as a community, in the sense of the business community and the increasing movement of responsible business, where people are ready for that conversation. I think we talked about, taking any positives we can out of the disastrous pandemic that we've endured for the past 18 months. For me, I think is this idea that business is business and community is community is completely wrong. Business has a massive role to play in the community, and it's incumbent, I feel, on us to provide solutions that make it very easy for business to implement those. And as a result, as you can see from the scale of those figures on the screen, the impact can be huge. So that's the theory. What did that actually look like in practice? So the WildHearts Group's sort of most prominent business is a business called WildHearts Office, and it provides stationery. So if we stay on that first bullet for now, you provide stationery. Now, why would you do that? Well, you do your research and you look at, well, there's about 2 wholesalers really out there in the world, so every supplier is getting the same stuff from the same place at the same price. Fantastic. You know that if you're going to have a conversation with the corporate supply chain, you're going to have a couple of hurdles to overcome, right? Product quality, service delivery, and cost. Now, straight away, if you identify a commodity in the way we did, you're thinking, great, you've already answered product quality and service deliverables because they're the same. The key part comes into cost. And all of a sudden, if you just do an analysis of what's out there, you can set up your operations to deliver it in a method that is going to be equally as commercial what's out there. Then you can leverage your USP, which is your added value, your social value, to be the differentiator in a conversation. Now, I'll be honest, we have no passion for stationery or office supplies, but when you are pioneering B2B supply chains, engaging with social enterprises, you have to deliver that in as low risk, low spend category as possible. And you completely de-risk it, but you give a massive upshoot if someone wants to engage with you in that conversation. That upshoot and purposes of our customers is that they're able to transform their lives in the communities in which they live and work by buying a product that they would buy anyway, but just because they chose to buy it from a different place, the benefit is significant. Now, that concept worked, hence why I'm chatting to you today. But what evolved from that was very, very unique. So we work with some of the biggest brands in the world, and I'll sort of come on to dispelling some of the myths associated with those brands in a second. But some of our key partners were saying, Kris, we love working with WildHearts. We love the fact that we spend X amount a year on stationery and that we create all this impact. It's terrific. There's only so much we can spend on stationery. Have you ever considered going into category X, category Y, category Z, some of which you see on the screen there? And this is where I'm going to come on to about really leveraging the secret sauce we all possess, which is our passion and our motivation and the people that we do what we do to help, to connect with these businesses and to connect with the people behind those brands, where you have, you go to any business school in the world and you can tell them that you've created a business, you've created a brand where you have created demand before you have the supply. So you have corporate partners saying, would you buy facility supply funds? Would you buy print management? Would you buy furniture? Would you help us consolidate these indirect procurement costs, as they term it? Because the more we spend with you, the more impact we'll create, the more we consolidate with you, the greater impact we can drive. Now, that is why we have diversified, and there were some absolutely terrific stories earlier. David particularly talking about diversification, particularly during the pandemic. And you see, we had a similar idea with the sort of COVID-19 PPE style products, because businesses approached us and said, if we're buying something like this and we know we can get it from you, as I said before, the prerequisite is you tick the quality box, you tick the service box, and you tick the commercial box, then they're going to want to buy it from you versus someone else that's out there. But by being in their faces and positioning your impact in a way that's tangible and real for them, you create that narrative. And this is how we do that. So we developed a social impact algorithm, completely audited, that allows people to equate spend with impact. And I think this is a really, really important way to completely reimagine in the minds of your target market what their money can really create and what it can mean. If you are a procurement professional who's spent your whole life talking about cost and that perception of value, and all of a sudden someone sits down and says, listen, that thing you're going to buy, I can get you that. I can get you it for the same price, but for every £5,000 you spend with me, 20 people are going to benefit. How do you mean? Well, this is our key programs. This is an example of person A. This is an example of person B. They have only benefited as a result of our social impact programs, because once upon a time, there was a procurement professional like you that decided that they would put their personal values and their professional values simultaneously. And I want to really try and dispel that myth that people see cold, hard commercial discussions as the opposite end of the spectrum to the types of conversations we will have on a daily basis around social impact and transforming communities. What we are spending our life trying to prove and to demonstrate, and what WildHearts does effectively, is prove that they can be wed. They are not mutually exclusive objectives. You know, you can improve your bottom line and you can improve society simultaneously. As long as you get your proposition right, you get your category right, and you get the right target market. Now, we chose a different path. Initially, we didn't go down the public procurement route. We didn't go for any public sector business because at the time we felt in order to maximise output with the sort of small team that we had, has been alluded to a couple of times, we were going to go for the private sector because you could go on a case-by-case basis, a contract-by-contract basis, and they have an ability to operate out with frameworks, an ability to just move, generally speaking, a little bit quickly. And far more quickly than you would typically find in a normal public sector exercise. So when you start to put it in front of procurement leaders and some of these brands, they're not just brands, and that's very, very, you know, what you realise very, very quickly, that there are people, there are mums, dads, you know, daughters, cousins, brothers, sisters that work in these businesses that, by and large, are really, really kind people. And more often than not, you'll find about some of the work that they do in their own time, and they immediately connect with your proposition. Therefore, if you can justify the business case, they are going to be an ally, they are going to be a supporter. If they are not the decision maker themselves, they will become your internal champion, and they will help you navigate these big businesses in order to find that decision maker and drive that impact. Because it's absolutely key that we connect the stories that we all live and breathe every single day in these environments, because what you find is, generally speaking, those stories are lacking in these environments, and you are providing value, right? These businesses are not doing you a favor by working with you or giving you a contract. We are providing immense value as a collective to businesses like this. So that is why, and if you're not aware of it, I'd encourage you to look up things like the Buy Social Corporate Challenge, why that exists. More and more businesses are being asked to demonstrate social value, and that is a knock-on effect from public procurement policy, which is terrific. So we've benefited from that policy in the respect of not directly going for those public contracts, but our customers needing to demonstrate social value, and us demonstrating that one of the most effective ways you can create social value, whether it's people, whether it's planet, is by engaging with social enterprises and embedding them into your supply chain. Now, there are some businesses on here that will only engage with nationwide contracts. And I see hands going up and saying, that's really, really difficult because we only service in X area, Y area, Z area. Now, what you're finding is a decentralization of a lot of these procurement decisions. And that then opens up a wealth of opportunity for smaller social enterprises that they get their foot on the ladder. And if you are confident in what you can deliver, and I'm sure we all are, that will not go unnoticed, because there is a network of people that I'm looking at when I look at those brands. Peer-to-peer endorsement is one of the most compelling ways that we have won new contracts, scaled up the contracts that we work with people, because when you walk the walk and people see the impact that they're creating and know that they've played a role in it, you've just brought them into the conversation, a conversation they never dreamed they'd be able to have, because you've invited them in. And what you will find is you will find champions that love what you do and give you terrific feedback. Then what you do is you grab that feedback, you get it written down, and you brand it up in a method like this. So that if you're walking into a different business, you've got 3 people that really, really like what you do. 3 really great people. I'm sure we've all got amazing people that we've connected with over the years that have done anything that they can to try and help you, because our passion is infectious. We have that secret sauce. So when you find them, utilize what they can open for you, the doors they can open for you, the connections that they can provide, but deliver it in a way that if I'm a rival of a Nestle or I'm a rival of Johnson & Johnson, I'm going to be looking at it thinking, in the modern era, these guys have a competitive advantage. And that's where you completely turn the conversation. It's not, this is a really nice thing to have, and this is a really thing, you should do the right thing. That is absolutely true. But when you twist the conversation, again, you're sort of positioning it in that commercial approach that these businesses tend to engage with. You could say, 3 of your competitors buy from us. That gives them an edge when it comes to recruiting the next generation of talent, sourcing the next generation of clients, going for contracts, because the perception of business has to change. Society's expectation of business is changing. Therefore, the pressure that a lot of these organizations are under is to be seen to be acting in a more responsible way. Now, I hear a lot of people saying businesses should do more, and I agree, but where I sort of add my voice to the conversation is, we're the passionate ones. We're the change makers. Let's be providing tangible, easily implementable solutions, commercially scalable, to these businesses, because the secret is they'll bite your hand off, because there is a real demand internally and externally on businesses to be more responsible in the way they engage, and particularly through the lens of the supply chain. Aligning your message to the way thought leaders think is absolutely key. So WildHearts Deliver All of Our Impact, we noticed that these 3 businesses are talking about something called the Sustainable Development Goals. What are they? So very, very quickly, we have to learn about the Sustainable Development Goals. And what you'll find is a lot of the impact that you're already delivering, you can map it against the SDGs. So we started mapping it against the SDGs. Little do we know, there's a head of sustainability, there's a head of procurement. Let's say, hold on a minute. What they do is really, really good, because they've got the stories and they can watch the videos. But when they see it relayed in a way that, hold on a minute, I'm being tasked to reduce carbon. I'm being tasked to address the SDGs. I'm being tasked to create social value. When we sort of debunk the myths and the narrative that surround all that, really it's what we are doing. But if we package it up as, here's how we can help you deliver X, Y, and Z, it completely changes the conversation. And you become a commercial and competitive advantage in the battle for talent and the battle for business. Now, that isn't everyone's drive to work with us, of course, but that is, if we want this whole movement to be scalable and to get the level of attention that it deserves, and therefore create the massive impact that we can as a collective, business for good has to be perceived to be good for business. That's how we scale it. And then you just get clever. You ask things of people, which would be my biggest piece of advice for what it's worth, is ask people favors. So we asked Jeanette, could you give us a quote? Because we're going to start pitching other insurance companies that would be really credible for you. Robin, could you talk to us about your environmental journey? Because that's what a lot of clients are really demanding. And it's, yes, because if you make the ask easy, people want to help us. People want to help businesses like us because we reflect a lot of their values. And that's the secret. So there's been a couple of pinch me moments. Probably the biggest one was we were invited to the UN to hold an annual summit there, 2018 and 2019. And what you then established is you're at the top table. You're leading conversations around the future of business. Because for me, the future of business is social business, it is social enterprise. But we have to think, act, and communicate like businesses for the purposes of engaging with the private sector and soon to be the public sector, because that will evolve. Private sector tends to take the lead. But to feel relevant to those businesses that allow us to make that change. Now, being commercially minded and positioning ourselves commercially doesn't detract from our passion around the impact. If anything, at times, I try to be dispassionate about impact in order to enable me to have more commercial discussions. And by having more commercial discussions, our impact scales. And had we not had that approach from the very, very beginning, I don't think I'd be here sat talking to you today. And I don't think there'd be a million people out there that had benefited as a result. We can be commercial and we can be social at the same time. And I think that's the future of scaling up social enterprise, scaling up our impact and really starting to redefine how social enterprise is perceived, both as a consumer and through those corporate supply chains. I'm genuinely immensely proud to chat to you today. The community has, you read the chat on the right-hand side of the screen, it's such a positive community of people that want to help and support each other. So I hope some of our journey that we've shared today is helpful and it's insightful. I say don't be shy in asking things of people. That includes myself, that includes other people at WildHearts. We transform the lives for over 1 million people. We want to inspire 10,000 people to go and do the same, because that is how we will really change the world. And I don't say that flippantly. I say that with absolute sincerity, because my God, it needs it now more than ever. And I think the change makers are in this virtual room. And if we can just learn from and harness and bottle up the energy that we've seen today, we're in a really, really good place. But channeling that energy, channeling that passion in a way that's going to land with your audience, whoever they may be, I think is key to scaling everything that we are about and everything that we believe in. So again, I'm immensely grateful to be here today. Immensely grateful for playing a part in this community. We talked a lot about resilience. We talked a lot about the challenges that the last year has faced, but sincerely, there is an unbelievable community out there. We are no longer niche. Whether you like it or not, we should be pushing to become mainstream, and people really recognize the benefits we can bring to their communities, to their lives, to their businesses. And we shouldn't shy away from having those types of conversations, because they allow us to do what we do. So massive thank you for having me. An absolute pleasure. Stay safe and take care.
Kris, thank you so much. What a talk. That was unbelievable. Thank you. I know everybody will have been inspired. And I particularly liked what you said, the future of business is social enterprise. That is right and out of our way, because the stories that we've heard this morning have been unreal. And as Kris talks about channeling that energy, imagine what could be achieved. So it's almost time for the end of today's conference. We'd like to thank you all for attending today. The platform is going to be open until around 12. What time are we at now? So it'll be open for another 10, 15 minutes or whatever. You're welcome to stay and chat with other delegates and connect with them. Move forward. The sponsors, etc. And all that remains for me to do is to welcome Colin Jess. He's the Director of Social Enterprise NI, and he's going to close today's conference. Thank you, Colin.
Good morning, everyone. So we've come to the end of our first virtual conference, and if you would just bear with me for a couple more minutes, just of a few points that I'd like to make. We're delighted to have seen so many of you here today. It's been a strange year, as we all know, since our last conference in Crumlin Road Jail on the 5th of March. But I just wanted to close today by saying a few words of thanks. First of all, to our panelists, to Jacinta, David Hunter, Gail, Jackie, and also to our sister organisation, SERI in the South, and their members, Karen and David. You were able to join us today. We plan to do a lot more together going forward. The cross-border will be more and more important in a post-Brexit world, so we're delighted that you were with us today. I'd like to say a huge word of thanks to Kris Bryson. I have heard Kris 2 or 3 times now, and every time I come away totally inspired, and I learn something else. His story is fantastic, and social business, social partnerships, it's so important going forward. Kris, that's been an inspiration, I think, to everybody who's been on the session today, and I really want to say a huge word of thanks. I want to say a huge word of thanks as well to Kate. Kate just didn't turn up this morning and turn on the computer and sit down and start engaging. Kate has spent a lot of her own time over this past couple of weeks getting to know the panelists, getting to know their stories. Kate's a great advocate for our sector and has been working closely with us. So to Kate, a huge thank you. We will be hearing more from Kate as well, as we plan to engage with her going forward in some of our digital marketing. So delighted that Kate has joined us today and for her input to making today such a success. I'd also like to thank Lucy in the background from DigiLeaders, who has seamlessly guided us through today, and also for putting up with us over the last couple of weeks. We have she's got many of calls saying, can we have a quick catch up? Can we have a quick catch up? So Lucy, a huge thank you. I don't want today to pass either without saying a huge word of thanks to my board of directors for their support, but particularly to Amanda, to David, and to our young ambassador, Amy. They have worked immensely over this past few weeks. It's been a very busy time for Social Enterprise Northern Ireland, but I think today has proved that all that hard work and all that effort has come to fruition. I'd like to say a word of thanks to the Department for Economy, to Minister Dodds. We're delighted as an organisation and honoured to work with the department in managing the Social Economy Work Programme as a representative body for the sector. And also say a huge word of thanks to you, our members and stakeholders, for all the support you've given us in the past. And we certainly look forward to engaging with you in the future. The sector has a huge role to play in rebalancing the NI economy. And every one of you, we've heard some great stories today, but there's so many more stories we could have heard. And every one of you has a great story to tell. And certainly we at Social Enterprise Northern Ireland want to help you tell it. The recognition recently by the Northern Ireland Executive in appointing Social Enterprise Northern Ireland to Procurement Board and also to the High Street Task Force is a great recognition and further commendation of all your work. The future can be whatever we want it to be. So I just wanted to say thanks very much to everybody who's taken part today. Thank you for taking the time out to engage. Enjoy the rest of your day, but the platform will remain open now for a while if you want to stay on. If there's people you want to chat with, if you've been engaging with directly on the chat function, hang about. There's no rush to get off. It's a bit like an event in person where people get up from their table but bump into 2 or 3 people on the way out the door. That's still possible on this platform. So we're going to let you go and mingle. But on behalf of Social Enterprise Northern Ireland, a huge thank you to every one of you for your support over the years. And we look forward to working with you going forward. Thank you.